Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Theory. In this video I am interviewing Alex from New Hampshire, who had an encounter while hunting in the Bear Brook State Park. You can tell the caller is being very genuine, and the experience has really rattled him up. The Sasquatch have the ability to come extremely close to people without them having any clue that they were ever even around. Well, in this case, Alex caught a good glimpse at what was stalking him out in the woods. If you enjoy listening to Bigfoot encounters, please like and subscribe. And if you have a Sasquatch encounter that you would like to share, please email me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. Oh, and I wanted to mention, if you guys would, please subscribe to the channel. It seems like YouTube loves unsubscribing people. I don't know why, but if you would, please resubscribe to the channel and I would really appreciate it. Sure, it messes with my life and my work, but I'm going to work around it, and they're going to have to whack us all like rabbits. All of us, every single whistleblower, so it's whatever. I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to continue the channel, and I'm always going to speak about Bigfoot. But yeah, if you guys think I haven't noticed, I have. And I don't care what you guys take away and what funds you take away from me. I'm always going to speak about Bigfoot, and I'm never going to stop. Alright, I've told you guys enough already. Let's dive straight into this next Bigfoot encounter from the state of New Hampshire. All right, Alex, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Not too bad, not too bad. Definitely ready to tell my story. Someone that's actually willing to listen to me. So this, I started hunting in 2020 after the pandemic started. I got all my certifications and stuff. So I've only been doing this for 3 years. I've been a long time fisherman, so you put me on the water, and I know exactly what to do. I can get a fish. You put me in the woods, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I've been like watching videos and stuff like that, and I figured, I would like to provide for my family, catch a deer. I have a kid now, so I wanted to have something that I can like be proud of and bring food home other than just fish. So the first year I went with a couple friends, no big deal, nothing that I could like notice that was weird. And same thing with the second year. Nothing really weird that I noticed. Again, I don't know much about hunting. I've been learning as I go. But this year, it was definitely something different about this year. I've been going. I live in the southern part of New Hampshire, out here in the city of Manchester. And the closest park to me that I can use a rifle and I don't have to use a shotgun is Bear Brook State Park, which is a 10,000 acre park. During the summer, there's people that camp there. People hike, people bow hunt, people rifle hunt. During the summer, there's just a lot of activities. But once fall comes around, that's when everybody else leaves and the park kind of slows down, and us hunters can really enjoy the park. This year, I went ahead and around September 3rd, I believe was the day, me and my wife went out there because it was my first time trying to get some squirrels. I wanted to see what they tasted like. And that day, I went to the same spot that I usually go. It's off of a trail. It's an old logging road itself that I found back in the first year that I was hunting. I ran into that trail and it was pretty ingrown. So I liked that there was deer scat everywhere, a lot of acorn trees. Um, Again, I'm new to hunting, so I didn't really realize back then what was happening. Um, Obviously, before I knew anything, the woods were very quiet that day, like so quiet that me and my wife were ignorantly being like, "Wow, it's so quiet and peaceful out here." So I left my wife on the actual logging road on a tree, not a tree. I apologize, on a rock, and I moved away around 50 feet from her up into this little hill that I always sit at for the last 2 years. So I'm just sitting there, quietly looking for squirrels, and I'm like, man, it's just there's no squirrels. It's weird, September, and then all of a sudden to my right, I just hear this banging, and I'm like, okay, I know there's private property on that right side. So I know, and years past, I've heard people shooting, but this was within 200 yards, and I know within those 200 yards, the elevation just drops drastically. Because out here in Bear Brook, especially in that part, you can't really see far enough because it's the elevation is just one hill after another hill, and it gradually gets up, 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 and then it just goes all the way down. So when I heard that first banging, I was like, "Oh, somebody's shooting." But I was like, "Whoa, that's close." Then instantly heard a second banging, and then I was like, "That sounds like somebody's chopping down a tree." And then I heard a tree cracking, like when you chop down a tree with an axe. You know how you would hit it again, and then the tree starts falling over, and you hear all that crunching. So I'm waiting for the tree to fall, but the tree never fell. So I'm texting my wife. I'm like, "Did you hear that?" And she's like, "No, I didn't hear anything." I'm like, "It's like somebody's chopping down wood out here." She goes, "That's pretty weird." She's like, "I can't really hear anything because we have Odin, our German Shepherd. He's being pretty panty." But she's like, "But I do hear somebody shooting off a gun to my left, which would be her left." And I was like, "Well, that's weird because to your left there's a trail over there. It's like a series of trails. I don't think anybody would hunt right there." And I scoped that area for it. So it's either wetlands or just too dense to be shooting. Uh, we sat there for another half hour. Everything was pretty quiet. I went back to her. We started talking about it. Again, the woods were very quiet. We ended up leaving. Uh, didn't really think anything of it. She also said she did mention that so she's to my left, I'm to the right. Straight ahead, I put my game camera, probably like 200 yards away or something like that, within those 200 yards. She said she heard a buck. She was like, "It sounded like your buck call from straight ahead." And that day really stuck to me. I was just like, it makes no sense to me why anybody would be shooting to the left. It's not deer season yet. Why wouldn't I hear the gunshots? Why didn't she hear the noises to my right? But I just brushed it off. No big deal. Um, exactly a week to the day, I went back by myself, and I spent 3 hours in the same exact spot. There was plenty of wildlife. I mean, there was squirrels everywhere. I was able to get my first squirrel ever. I was able to take it home. Nothing out of the ordinary. Like I said, everything was just, the whole forest was alive, which I was like, huh, kind of weird. I'd say about a half a week later. I'm a truck driver by trade, so I listen to a lot of YouTube, and I have YouTube Plus, so like I don't have the commercials, and like I'll set it up on my truck and stuff like that. And I followed Les Stroud, which would be the Survivor Man channel, because I was watching it at home, watching some Survivor Man, and I was going through some podcasts or whatever. I don't remember exactly what was going on, but nonetheless, Les Stroud came on, and it was the Sasquatch Chronicles that came on. And I was like, "Well, what's this?" I was like, "Okay, you know what? Let's listen to it. Whatever. Something to listen to." Sometimes I get bored and just listen to random stuff. Um, that's when it all started clicking into place. I was just like, "Well, what the heck?" Listening to that podcast kind of opened my eyes as to maybe there's something out in the woods. Because before this, all I knew about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, I don't even like using those names because it just makes me feel like I'm insane, was History Channel, like Monster Quest and like the Patty film from, like I said, anything from the History Channel. Because I used to watch a lot of History Channel stuff when I was growing up. So I wasn't really like believing there was anything out in the woods like that. If anything, I was more afraid of running into some kind of spirit out in the woods, or some kind of UFO or anything like that than Bigfoot. That Bigfoot was the last thing on my mind. So nonetheless, I became obsessed with listening to these podcasts, and I was telling my wife, I'm like, "Don't you think that's kind of weird?" I was trying to like talk to her about it because she was able to like experience this with me. She's kind of like, whatever. She believes in it, but she didn't really like pay that much mind. Um, Started researching more and more, and then I was like, you know what? I just to be on the caution side, I didn't see anything, but if that's there, let me go to another part of the woods. Let me go somewhere else. So I went to the top half of the park and started scouting for a different location. Um, I took my dog because I started hearing that these things don't like dogs. So I figure if I'm going in the woods and I'm gonna end up running into something, then maybe my dog will let me know. Um, so I went one day and I was scouting an area. I went off of a trail and my dog didn't even. He was just a happy-go-lucky, didn't care. But I don't know why I got this really bad gut feeling that I was being watched and that I should just leave right now. I just kept getting this weird vibe, leave, 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 leave. So I was like, all right, Odin, come on, let's go. We turned around, went back on the actual trail, and then just left. I ended up running into some bow hunters because this was in bow season in New Hampshire. Hunting season for rifles doesn't start until November 9th. So I was like, okay, I'm not going there. And that's when I ended up in the location that this all happened, which I've been before. The years past, I've seen moose there, and I've hunted in that same spot. But I was like, I'm just gonna go here. I'm gonna stay right here. I set up my camera, and so it's off of the main road. I set my camera up 350 yards away from the main road. I felt very comfortable there because I was so close to the road. I set up my deer stand. When I'm up in the tree, I can literally see the road from my deer stand. So I'm like, okay, there's no way, there's no way nothing's gonna happen here at all. So I went there 3 different times once hunting season started. The first time, I was in the woods for 10 hours. Uh, I already knew there was deer there for sure. I was there for 10 hours. Now it started snowing, and let me paint the picture for you guys. The way my stand is, to my right, if about 1 o'clock, 350 yards away, is the main road. Now, if I look straight ahead at 12 o'clock, you get around 300 yards before you hit a trail. And then to my left is where the rest. There's a game. There's a game trail right there where I caught a deer going through, and there's like these a brush of pine trees, of baby pine, because this part was logged before, so there's like trenches and stuff like that, or just like the old trucks coming through. Hasn't been logged in a while, years. So you can just tell. So I was like, okay, I'll shoot to my 11 o'clock. If I see anything from 12 to 1, I won't shoot, but I can see it. Also, from my 1 o'clock, which is the road, all the way to my 11, it's pretty flat, and then it goes up in elevation, and then about like 200, 300 yards behind that, it just drops off about 150 yards. Just so it's like it's very hilly. This park, there's a lot of hills on it. So it, like I said, going back to it, started snowing. And within those 200 yards, I thought that I was seeing something sway behind a tree, left and right, left and right, left and right. I'm like, okay, I've been watching too many Sasquatch Chronicles. I've been watching too many Sasquatch videos. This is just my mind. I'm clearly playing tricks on myself. I put my rifle scope up. I couldn't see anything, but then I would start like staring off again in that same direction. I would see like something swaying left and right, left and right. I'm okay. I'm watching too much of it, so whatever. While I'm doing all this, I usually have a pair of headphones on, like on one ear, and I'll have my wife, because she works at an office, so she's able to talk to me all day. So just to have somebody to talk to, me and her whisper back and forth. If I see anything or whatever, I'll talk to her. So I was telling her about it. I'm like, it's kind of weird, and that's pretty much what happened that day. I left. I came back the second day, another full day. It was very dead, nothing out of the ordinary. I got bored and I got cold because I was doing another long day. So I was like telling my wife, I'm gonna get down and I'm gonna go for a walk. I mean, might as well. I've already been sitting here for a while. If I run into something, I do. If not, then I'll come back another day. So I got down from the stand. I walked. I did a giant circle around so I can end up back on my deer stand, going down from my left, and then going back to that drop that I was talking about earlier, where it goes up in elevation, it goes drop. So I went about around that way. When I got halfway in that giant circle that I was speaking of that I did, I started smelling something. But I don't have a very good sense of smell because I have a deviated septum, so I have like the worst sense of smell. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, it smells like pine trees. Like, it smells like it's not supposed to be sweet at all, but I'm smelling it very sweet to me in my nose. And I wasn't smelling this when I was up in my tree stand or when I was in that area where I was sitting. But once I started walking, that's when I started smelling it. I don't know if that has to do with anything but it's just something that I noticed and it's been sticking in my mind ever since. When I came back around, this is another thing that I found very weird. I was probably like 30 to 50 yards away from my deer stand from the back end of it. I happened to look down and there's this rock. And by rock, I mean like it's probably like to be like at maximum 2 feet, maybe a foot and a half. Those large and in the diameter probably about a foot. It was pretty large. Where like it was like pulled out of the ground and left right next to it, where you could still see, like obviously it was fresh. There was like dirt all over the rock, and I just looked at it. I was like, that's pretty weird that like somebody out here is like with like in the middle of the woods just gonna pull a rock out of the dirt, and it's something like this big that was like dug into the ground pretty much, and it was already settled there for a while, and you could just tell that it was freshly dug up. Again, something that I noticed that's been kicking around in my head ever since it happened. I told my wife 1,000 times, I'm like, I don't know what this has to do with anything, but it just makes no sense because I've noticed the last 2 years, because the year before I hunt there for a couple days, and this year there's only one other person that goes to that specific spot, and he has a deer stand out there. And I actually, when I was doing that circle, I saw his stand, and obviously left it alone and walked past it. He wasn't hunting that day, so I got back in my tree and whatever. I left. And now this is the infamous day that has been living in my head ever since November 17th. I got out of work at like 11 or 12 o'clock p.m., something like that. Had a half day pretty much. So I was like, hey, I told my wife I'm going to go out there. I really want to get a deer. This is my third year. I've seen deer. I've seen them in person, and I still haven't been able to shoot at them. So let's. I'm going hard this year. She's like, all right, So I go out there. Once again, I sit at my deer stand. I have her in her earbud, just quietly talking to her. Keeping myself entertained, because it's not gonna lie, hunting is pretty boring. Usually when I'm fishing, I'm able to cast and cast and cast. When you're just sitting there in the woods in the cold, it gets pretty boring. So I talk to her quietly. Probably not the best thing to do. You should probably sit there in quietness. But again, I'm a new hunter. So I'm sitting in my deer stand. The sun is hitting behind me and is flashing at that brush that has the game trail, and that's where I'm aiming at, and I'm hoping a deer pushes through there so I can shoot it. I have a good backdrop, so that's where I'm really focusing. And then I'm talking to my wife, and I notice this like walnut brown kind of like blob sticking its like I want to say head, but back then I didn't know what it was. It was a walnut brown, and it was like behind the brush. It's almost like I want to try to describe this, but like the way the brush was almost like a upside down triangle, and like just picture like a blob just like placed right there. And I was like, I told my wife, I'm like, it looks like there's something staring at me through the brush. And she goes, well, that's weird. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, the sun's hitting at this brush, and this is like 60 yards away, so I can't really see it. I told myself, don't look through the scope, because I wanted to look through the scope to see it, but I was like, it's nothing. Don't look. You're fine. Just leave it alone. No big deal. This is like my inner dialogue with myself while I'm talking to my wife at the same time. So I brush it off. Again, I don't really believe in Sasquatch. I heard those noises, but I'm like, no big deal. Just don't look through the scope. You don't even have to look through the scope. I forgot about it, and I kept talking to my wife, and then all of a sudden, I look over again, and I'm like, I noticed that walnut brown blob is not where I was looking at. That was. It was. I was just like, okay, that clearly I'm just making this stuff up. I didn't see anything, whatever. But I really want to get a deer. So the time is closing. I'm getting a little cold, and I'm like, I'm gonna stay out here. I'm gonna stay out here. It's around 4:50, 4:55. Not sure exactly what time. This happened between 4:55 to 5:10. Um, I'm like, just what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm like pushing it and pushing it and pushing because I really want to get a deer. I want to be proud of myself for being able to hunt an animal, but it just doesn't happen. So I get down. As I'm walking back to my car, I wasn't expecting to stay past dark, so I have like a little Walmart crappy little flashlight in my like a headlamp with like half dead batteries from Dollar Tree. So I put those on, and now I'm walking backwards, and I'm looking at that game trail, and I'm talking to my wife, and I'm like, just like, man, wouldn't it be nice if like a deer would just stand right there and I could just take a shot? And I keep talking to her, and it's getting darker and darker to the point where it's just now it's dark, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, I gotta go. Like, there's no point. I still have a little bit of time because in New Hampshire, they give you half hour after sunset or dusk. But I was like, I'm done. Like, let's just go home. So now at this point, I'm just talking loud. I'm like, whatever. If a deer hears me, it's not a big deal. I'm talking to my wife. I got my rifle in my hand. I got my backpack. I got this crappy little light that I was not expecting to use. It's half lit. So I'm walking. Now, as I'm walking straight back. And halfway from that 350 yards, I can see cars, obviously, at this point because it's dark. They're just moving, going through. And I'm talking and talking. And then as I scan left, it didn't register right away. Like, my eyes saw it before my brain could think about it. I saw these Christmas tree style, just bright bulb staring at me, and I just went from left to right, and then I went, wait a minute, what? And as I look back and I put my flashlight on it, I just see this. I'm 5'9", so when I'm looking at this thing is taller than me, but it's not like crazy tall. I would say like maybe 7 feet. Like, it wasn't crazy tall. But the first thing that went through my mind, again, I'm not even thinking Bigfoot. I was like, either demon or a ghost. And the thing that I was scared the most about walking through those woods were like Indian ghosts that were just angry and just roaming through the woods. So that's the first thing that went through my mind. I was like, holy shit. That's exactly what went through my mind. I said it out loud. I gasped. I froze. I remember putting the rifle up to my chest and clutching it and just froze because I'm now in the middle of the woods. I have a crappy light on. I can see cars, but all I can see is this thing just standing there staring at me less than 20 feet away. I can't see a face, and this is what's been bugging me ever since this happened. I can't see a face. All that my mind is focusing on is those bulbs staring at me. And I'm like, what the F? And then when it realized that I was looking at it and I was just standing there, the bulbs just disappear. And then all I see is this walnut brown shagginess just in a flash, just run away. Oh, God. Literally goosebumps all through my body right now. It just replays constantly in my mind. Like every time I think about it, my body just goes into a goosebump frenzy. I told my wife, I'm like, there's something out here with me. There's something out here with me. And I froze before it ran away. Actually, I froze because I was staring at it. It was staring at me. I gasped, and literally I forgot that I had a gun in my hand. I forgot that I had a gun in my waist. Like, I think about it now, I'm like, this thing could have easily just pounced on me, and then that would have been the end of me. Because I've been in scenarios where I've had to like think and react to things, and I'm always like, oh yeah, if anything ever happens, I'll definitely be able to react. Man, I froze beyond anything that I could ever. Flight was 100% on my mind. And then that's when it just turned away and it ran, and I saw that it was slim and brown and shagginess, and it ran so fast on 2 feet. Because I told somebody this story, and I stopped telling it to friends because he was like, "Oh, you saw a moose, dude. You saw a moose, or you saw a bear." I'm like, "Dude, there is no walnut, shaggy, brown bears in New Hampshire running on 2 feet so fast and so quiet through the woods." I mean, a black bear, from what I've known, what I've learned, is that a black bear is not gonna just stand there and stare at you on two legs. If it's gonna attack you, it's gonna attack you. Um, and I was talking so loud. Like I said, at this point, I didn't even care. I was talking to my wife. We were joking around. So once it left, I have my hunting gun is a Henry lever action, and it doesn't have a crossbolt safety or cross safety. It just the safety is you bring down the hammer. I was so scared. I started running, and then I was like, "Wait, slow down, just walk." I had my finger on the trigger, which I know breaks all the rules, and I had my thumb on the hammer, and I was pressing on the trigger because at this point I was going to slam fire because I didn't want to just run through the woods with the gun cocked and have something happen. So I figured, I mean, like I said, in my frenzy panic, I figured I have my finger on the trigger pulled so I could just slam fire the gun if I have to. And this thing ran in the same direction that my car was. And I had to go in the same direction to get out of the woods. So at this point, I'm freaking out. I'm running, and I'm looking back. I'm using my flashlight to see if I see any kind of like eye shine. I made it out of the woods, scared out of my mind. I had to hang up on my wife because I just have no idea what the hell I just witnessed. 3 days later, I asked my buddy if he can come with me, and I brought an AK, and me and him went out there. He doesn't believe me. I got my deer stand. I thought my deer stand was going to be mangled or something. It wasn't. I got it out. I haven't been back since. And that's what happened to me that day. That's now when I know that these things are out there, and the fact that I couldn't hear it creeping up on me, the fact that it was within 20 feet and it was bracing enough to be within 20 feet of me, staring at me, and I couldn't even realize it was there. If it wasn't for my flashlight, I wouldn't have known it was there. I would have walked right past it. So, I've talked in a couple forums. They're like, "Oh, it was just curious of you." I'm like, "Yeah, I get that, but the fact that it was just standing there so close, and I hear, like they don't like guns and don't like that, like, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to fathom what was going through its mind. That's what goes through my mind a lot. Like, what was it thinking? Why was it there? Why did it get so close to me if it could just watch me from far away? Why be within 20 feet of me? And if these things are so smart, knowing hunters, flashlights, like what, like why, and why didn't it take me? Why didn't it attack me? Why didn't it never really make its presence known to me, except when I caught it? And once it realized that I realized that it was there, that it chose to run away. So, when my buddy picked me up, I told him the story. He really didn't believe me, and I was like, that's when I was like, I don't know, man. Like, there's just a lot of things in this world that like don't make sense. There's a lot of things in this world that just bump in the night, and I told him about when this summer, before actually this whole scenario happened, I went outside to take my dogs out at like 10 o'clock at night. I live right next to an airport, so I'm constantly looking up in the sky, all the time. I hear planes all the time. I just saw the Starlink satellites last week. I didn't even know they were happening until I actually saw them in the sky. I saw these triangles flying over my house. Like there were literally three triangles in a triangle formation. No lights, no sound. Within 1,000 feet, just poof. 1 second it was there, 1 second it wasn't. And I told him, I'm like, isn't that weird? He goes, it's funny you say that because I have a few buddies that have been out like fishing at night or camping, whatever he said. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he goes, they've been seeing triangles as well. So I was like, isn't that weird? The year that I see these triangles, I run into this thing. So that's exactly what happened that fateful night.
All right, Alex. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Yeah, the black triangle is strange. I had an encounter with one not too long ago, and it flew over my house real slow. There was no noise, and it was huge. I mean, there's this giant oak tree in the back, and from where I was standing, the ship was as big as the top of the oak tree, which, this thing was really high up in the air, but it seemed like it had three lights that were glowing, and the light in the back right was brighter than the rest, the other two. But it was strange because it felt like, I don't know how to explain it, like the world was getting pushed back and the craft was just standing still. This is the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening in our skies either, because it's not the first thing I've seen. I've seen so many UFOs over my lifetime, and I've seen like shadow people. So I don't know if that's what, like, I don't know if like I'm just attracted to these kind of things, and this is why I saw that. But it makes none of this makes sense to me.
Yeah, and that's something to keep note, that you had this encounter the same year that you seen the black triangle.
That's what, like, yeah, that's one thing that's like, because again, I constantly think about it, and when you drive 13 hours in a day and you like watch some of these like videos and podcasts, you just start pondering and wondering, and it's like the one year. I mean, it's not, and it's not even me. Obviously, I don't know these people that saw it, but I mean, I do believe my friend, and he was pretty skeptical that I even saw this creature out in the woods. But the fact that he was like, "Oh yeah, you're not the first person that said that they've seen flying triangles over Manchester." So it's like, what's going on right here? Um,
Yeah. So when you were up in the deer stand, did you ever think that it was possibly a deer when you saw the brown blob behind the brush?
no. This that brush is pretty tall, and I've seen deer before there, and I know what they look like. This was, it honestly like looked like a face, like it like I thought I was seeing like a black eye, like a super black eye in that walnut brown. And this is before I even actually saw. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's like a walnut brown. I'm like, and I'm telling my wife about it. And again, I don't really think that there's a Sasquatch out here. I heard the noises. I'm just being precautious because I believe in a lot of things, but I've never actually like experienced the whole Sasquatch phenomenon. So I'm like, I don't think this is anything. And like, I wanted to put my gun up to look at through the scope, but something kept telling me don't do it. So I just ignored it, and then I kind of spaced out talking to my wife, and then and let me mind. Let me back up a second. When this was happening, the sun was hitting that part of the brush, so it wasn't like it was a shadow like effect. You know what I mean? Like the sun was actually hitting directly on that spot, which is what I even told my wife. I'm like, this is weird. Like and then when the sun goes down even more, and then there's now it's a shadow at that spot. Now it's that walnut brown kind of round thing. It literally almost felt or looked like there was just like a face sticking through that little opening of, like I said, it was like a, think of an upside down triangle, and those and that's what like the opening was, and it almost was like somebody was just putting their face up to that little spot and just staring at me. And again, I brushed it off because I've been sitting in the woods for so long. I'm like, you know what? It's literally me just tripping out, like whatever, no big deal. So like I wasn't sketched out about it. That's to the point where I stayed past dark. So I brushed it off as it's nothing. It's my imagination. You know.
Yeah. What do you think the creature's intentions were?
That's literally what I think about every single day. I have no idea. I've tried talking to different people. There's this like Sasquatch New Hampshire community, but this nobody really like talks on it. It's very small, and I just recently joined this group that's very close. There's only like I'm like the 51st member. It's a New Hampshire group, and the admin asked me like, hey, why do you want to join this group? I noticed you don't really have anything about Sasquatch on your profiles. I'm like, well, I just had this encounter, blah, blah, blah. And I started talking to him about it, and he's kind of saying things that like kind of make sense. They're like, they're not apes. I'm like, I don't think they're apes. 100%. There's no way that there's an ape running around the woods that we have not been able to discover. He's saying it's some kind of like old tribe. I'm like, I don't know exactly what it is, and I don't know what its intention was, and that's what freaks me out because why why was it getting, and that these are the answers that I'm like trying to actively seek. Why was it getting within 20 feet of me? If everybody says they know what a gun is, they know what this, you know what I mean, they know what humans are, evil and all this stuff, why was it 20 feet away from me, standing there, just standing there, like thinking I wasn't even gonna see it? Like that's the part that just I can't wrap my mind around at all. I don't know. All I know is that if it really was going to kill me or take me away, it could have 100% easily done that because that thing creeped. Like I told you, those things, the woods to the right where it was are pretty spaced out, so you can see things coming. So this thing actively creeped so close to me without me even realizing. Not, mind you, I was stomping to the ground at this point and talking to my wife, but this thing crept up so close to me and just stood there, watching me like we watch animals in a zoo. And I don't know. I honestly don't know. Maybe it just like wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna hurt anybody with my gun. But I mean, I'm pretty mindful out there in the woods. I'm pretty respectful. I don't eat trash. I don't know, man. I honestly, that's what I'm trying to figure out. That's why I'm trying to be here. Maybe somebody can give me some kind of guidance because the admin that I'm talking to recently from that group was like, don't go hunting there again. Um, that's their park, and it just makes no sense to me because if anything, I would never think that such a small park, which on that main road goes straight through the middle of the park. Um, there's houses there. I never thought there'd be like these things so close. I mean, well, I'm within. I think it takes me 20 minutes from here to get there. So as the crow flies, it's probably not even 10 miles from civilization, and there's towns all around it. And it's a pretty popular park during the summer. People camp there. So his intentions, only it knows. To be honest, I can only speculate, and it's bending and breaking my mind trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, you're fine to hunt there, and the Sasquatch aren't confined to the boundaries of the park. Their territory expands much further than that. But from my perspective, just initially hearing it, you would think that this thing was getting ready to pounce on you or was trying to hunt you. But I think it could hear the sound of your voice, and that's what drew it in. Because you said you were talking to your wife and you were whispering. I think these things can hear really good, and it was trying to get closer to hear what you were saying.
you just gave me goosebumps. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I was the whole time. I probably shouldn't, like I said, probably shouldn't have been whispering to my wife. I was just sitting there quietly talking to her on my little headphone because I get pretty bored out there, so she would keep me entertained. And at the end of the night, I was talking pretty loud. Like at this point, I didn't care if a deer heard me anymore. I was like, "Oh, I'm going home," whatever. Just talking to her. I'm pretty sure I was laughing right before this happened. So like, yeah, a couple of people said, "Oh, I was just curious about you, just curious about you." But I'm like, I found like, why? Just like, you leave me alone, and I'm 100% gonna leave you alone. I could have honestly lived the rest of my life without knowing these things were out there.
Yeah. He also could have been waiting for you to get a deer, that way he could steal your kill. A lot of times these things will be around hunters the whole time, and they'll wait until they kill a deer and take it.
You know what makes no sense to me too? This is my third year hunting. I have never gotten a deer, right? And I belong to one of the pages of local hunters around here. And there's people out there that been hunting their whole lives, nothing. I mean, I've seen posts this year of like people walking through the woods at night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, why me? Like, I'm here like just going to a little park right next to my house. Obviously, relatively close to my house. Like, I'm not out in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. I'm not out in these like crazy outskirt parks where like you barely see any humans. I'm out where like half the time you gotta watch out with like people walking around their dogs and stuff like that. That's what also makes no sense to me because like, for a while after it happened, my brain was like, "You didn't see that. That's not exactly what you saw. Like, there's no way you saw that." I'm like, "Dude, you're literally so close to the road. Like, that road around that time of day when everybody's getting out of work, it was just cars zipping by left and right, left and right, left and right. Like, it wasn't some like obscured road in the middle of nowhere. This was like a lot of traffic going through. Why is this thing here? Why is this thing staring at me? Why is this thing so close to me? Things that I don't think I'll ever get the answer to, not until I meet my maker at least.
Yeah, and it's so quiet, or it's so amazing how quiet they can be when they're sneaking up on you. And the fact that he knew and was able to figure out that you were watching him, and he took off after that, that shows intelligence.
100%. Because when I was staring at it, I didn't even think Sasquatch. I was like, honestly, I was thinking like a demon because the whole like the eye shine, because it was so tall and it would just stare. I literally like 5'9", so I'm not like looking crazy up, but I'm like looking like my eyesight goes a little bit above, and I'm like just gasping right there at that point. And then once it realized, just zip in a heartbeat. And the fact that this thing could run off in a heartbeat in the total darkness has also blown my mind. Like, how do you just run off like that? And I had a friend being like, oh, maybe it was somebody in a monkey costume, or somebody in like another hunter in some kind of like camouflage. I'm like, dude, human eyes do not glow like that. And these things were just bulbs, bright bulbs.
Yeah.
That's
What
actually that's
color? What
actually
was the
another.
eye shine?
It was white. That's another thing that still blows my mind is that so when I notice it, and again my brain didn't register it, so I look left, I see the eye shine just standing there, and then I look right and back down because I'm scanning left to right, scanning left to right. As I'm looking down and change my vision, it's still bright. Like those bulbs' eyes are still there. So that's when I look back up and my brain actually registers like, whoa, there's something standing there. And when I'm standing at it, I mean, it could be the shock realistically, but I don't understand how I couldn't see the face. All I saw was just the eye shot into it, looked away, and then that's when I saw it run off. And that's when I like, I don't when you wash a dog, you know how like their hair kind of clumps into like spike style, it like clumps together. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
That's almost what it looked. It was shaggy. It almost looked like it was just like not matted, but it was just like that. Like when the dog gets wet and their hair just clumps together in like spots. And that's what it looked like. And I mean, again, I don't understand why I couldn't see its face when I was standing. Like literally, if I didn't have a flashlight on, we would be literally looking eye to eye.
Yeah. So the eyes were self-illuminated and they're a white color?
I don't know if the cell I that I don't know. I can't be telling you yes. All I know is that when I looked left, I saw the eye shine. Um, as I looked right, I out of the corner of my eye, I still saw the eyes. So that's when I like my brain finally registered. It's like, whoa, there's something here. And I look back left again, and that's when I'm staring at it. I'm like, oh shit! I gasped. I'm like, clutched my rifle and just froze.
Yeah. And could you see any features? Anything?
That's literally what. No, I. That's what I
Okay.
still don't understand. When I'm if I'm flashing my flashlight on it to the point where like I mean the second it turned away and it ran away, that's when I saw what it was. So like it's not like it's what I mean. Like I don't understand. I don't understand why I couldn't see its face when I'm shining my flashlight straight at it. But when it turned away and ran away, that's when I saw this lengthy walnut brown, shaggy, just tall. I would say dude in the sense of like just this like 2 feet and 2 hands just run off so fast that I was just like, whoa. And that's when that's when I took off. I was like, this is my chance. I gotta go now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's frightening. And have you went back to hunt that area?
Oh, I stopped hunting. I literally after that I was like, I don't know. I kept telling my wife, "Oh, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back," but I never ended up going back. I haven't gone back since, to be honest, since the day that I got my deer stand. Like I said, I brought my AK and I brought like 90 rounds, like 3 magazines. I brought my buddy. I didn't even want to go alone. I feel like I shouldn't even go. I go alone. And it's funny because last year I would get out of work around like 5. It'd be dark, and I would run out there and like put a game cam or like change batteries and then leave and again, nothing happened in the last 2 years, realistically. Well, nothing that I've ever noticed, because like I said, I'm so new. Like when back in September, when all that banging and the woods being so quiet, I didn't even like. I hear all these stories and they're like, yeah, the woods got quiet. And that's when I noticed. That's where I realized something's wrong. I'm over here. Me and my wife are like, oh, it's so quiet. It's peaceful. Like, it's so ignorant. Very ignorant and just again, you put me on a beach and I can tell you where the rips are. I can tell you where the sandbars are at. Throw me in the woods and I'm just learning. I was taking it year by year, day by day, video by video, teaching myself because I didn't grow up hunting. So, but I wanted to learn. So I was out there making an effort, thinking I was the biggest, baddest thing out there carrying a 4570. No big deal. I got this. And you're not the biggest thing out there in the woods, man. I am not afraid of bears. I'm not afraid of moose. I am afraid of these things. 100%. Like the fact that I forgot I even had a rifle in my hands. That's on a new level that I've never experienced fear before. And I've seen like shadow people, and I've seen UFOs, and this thing just took my breath away. And I didn't even get and the thing that bugs me the most is that I didn't get to see its face, and I want to, and I don't want to at the same time. Like I wanna look at it, but not in the way that it happened, where like it knew that I want to be. I want like a mutual thing where like we both know we're there, not this thing creeping on me, just standing. Like it's just so creepy to think that this thing was within 20 feet. That's so close. Like what are you doing? Like I don't know.
Yeah. And years ago, the Sasquatch came to the edge of the house. There's probably like 6 or 7 of them, and I could hear them stomping around out there. And I previously just had some encounters right before that, so I was pretty freaked out. And I hit them with the spotlight, and they're probably about 70 yards away across the yard, about 20 yards into the woods, 20, 30 yards into the woods. But when I hit them with the spotlight, all you could see is these big yellow green looking eyes, and you couldn't see their bodies. You can only see the eye shine. But I knew it was the Squatch because they came in on all fours and they're like bobbing up and down. And I thought, oh, that's deer for sure. And then one of the pair of eyes went up to about 9 feet plus, like an elevator, just fluently, like it stood up, and that freaked me out. And then, like, about a couple minutes after that, one walked up from the opposite direction and I hit him with the spotlight and I could see him. I could see him clear as day. He didn't even look over at me either. It was like a big 7 foot tall, whitish gray, smoky color Sasquatch with black eyes. And he just walked towards that group of Sasquatch that came from the other side. He was meeting up with them. But yeah, it was strange. It's like the clan knew how far back to stay.
Yeah, these things are definitely smarter than people give them credit for. They're I don't think they're monkeys, man.
Hmm.
These things are not monkeys.
I don't either. They look like primates. They do wood knocks, throw rocks, and do whoops like monkeys. But as far as like their intelligence level and how they live their everyday lives, how they stay elusive, that's nothing like a primate. I mean, on some aspects, but as far as it being 2023 and this being treated like, the Roswell incident, there's got to be something behind it.
I agree. I've heard a lot that people they're like, oh, it's because of the logging industry. It's because of the logging industry. I think that's too inside the box of a thought. I don't know exactly why this is being kept a secret. I think the government definitely knows. I don't think like Biden knows. Oh, you know what I mean? But I think there is a section of the government that we don't know that deals with things like this. And I mean, it's silly to think for me even saying something like this, but like, like the whole Men in Black. And I'm not saying the Men in Black. I'm saying like that concept of where like there's a section that they deal with stuff like this constantly, and they're the ones in charge of keeping these things quiet because there's just a bigger agenda of keeping it quiet. I don't know what it is, but I think the logging industry, honestly, is just it's like small potatoes compared to like why they're trying to keep it quiet. I don't know. Like
Hmm.
I'm obviously speculating, so I have no clue what I'm talking about. That's just my brain, firing off.
Yeah, there's probably many reasons why it's kept a secret. And I mean, logging alone wouldn't be it, just because, all the state parks, national forests, they do logging, but they take care of the woods. They plant new trees and it's good for the wildlife. And, it benefits everyone, hunters and the animals. And, they're protecting the animals and the trees. So in that case, if it was that simple, they just tell us, okay, there's some type of primate running around. But I think it ties into the gateways, the portals, and the paranormal. That's why they don't want to tell us. The same with the pyramids and the secrets behind it, UFOs, ghosts, paranormal. They don't want to acknowledge the existence of that phenomenon. And if anything ties into that, it's not real
Yeah,
in their
exactly.
eyes.
Exactly. No, I mean, I don't know. It's a crazy thing when you see these things for real.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been proven that conservation, if they find, endangered species, they protect them. You see that with
I,
wildlife in America.
I definitely don't think these things are endangered species. I mean, they probably would be if like we all knew about it, but the way that it's now, they are not an endangered species. The fact that this thing was able to just and it's not like back in September where like these woods are just like alive with trees and it's just like you can't see past like 20 feet because it's just brush and trees and everything's just alive greenery wise. When this happened, all the trees were dead. It was a very spaced out thing where, like I said, you could take a shot at like 200-300 yards away at certain spots where I was. I could see the road 350 yards away, so it's not like like this thing could just creep quietly in the sense of like from tree to tree, from brush to brush. This is like this thing knew that I couldn't see it and that it was going to walk as close to me as possible and it was going to observe me. I, I'm just glad that because there's a lot of people that go missing in the woods. That's my fear going back now. Honestly, I think I'm just going to stick to my fishing because I want to get a deer in the worst way. I love guns and I love being out in nature. It's so peaceful, but There's a lot of people just randomly go missing and never found again.
Yeah, true. And I feel like the Sasquatch are in all the state parks throughout North America,
Yeah, no,
not just certain ones.
no, they're everywhere. If you think there's not one where you are, um, I'm just talking in general here. Then you're just being bliss and ignorant, because I never in a million years would have thought in this little park, 10,000 acres, plenty of people always around. Like if you look at the map, you'll see like it's just town houses everywhere. Like you think they're gonna be somewhere in like the White Mountains, where like it's just nothing but acreage of just trees and woods and deer, and these things are closer to humans than anybody ever knows, and that's the scary part to me.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them, but they're still rare. It's like there's a lot of mountain lions all over North America, but they're not everywhere. But the thing with Sasquatch is when they show up, it's not like, oh, a mountain lion or two showed up. It's like seven of them showed up. So, you should catch glimpses of them or hear wood knocks, something, if they're around.
Yeah,
At least smell them.
I mean it's crazy. Like from the two pictures that I showed you from like that by Lost Trail, where this happened, the wood knocks. This is like maybe a mile or two, and from what I've heard, I know they can roam very like, but I just didn't think that like if it's happening over here, maybe if I go over here in this little corner by a main road, I'll be left alone and I'll never see anything, and then I can ignore it and then come back again. But no, it's like it's almost like these things were just really wanted me to know that they existed. you know, like what the heck? And honestly, I give you kudos to you. I love watching your videos because you have the stones to be staying at these places. I refused 100% to go back anywhere in those woods alone during the day, and forget about at night with people. Like the only way you're gonna catch me in those woods at night is I'm talking about fully loaded, weapons, and we have night vision or thermals or something like that, and we're ready to go. Because these things are masters at night, and the fact that it could creep on and run full speed into the night, I'm not messing with that, man. That's not my forte.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm not brave. I'm terrified doing that. And the more I do it, the more terrified I become. The only thing that makes it better is having like a group of people around, everyone's armed and you just got that camaraderie, with other people. So
Right.
being
Yeah,
alone
exactly.
is what makes it tough at nighttime staying out there.
Yeah, I will definitely not. And like I said, I'm like still debating. I'm like I want to go hunting, man, because it's like it's a newfound passion. I'm like it feels so good to be out there. It's like such a peace of mind, especially before, like I said, before I even knew these things were existing. The past years, just being out there. I mean, last year I fell asleep in the woods out in Bear Brook, just passed right out. And then this year I'm thinking, I'm like, man, this thing could have just like easily stepped right like inches away from me, snapped my neck, and then took me off, and then nobody would have ever known what happened to Alex. You know?
And now you know why you haven't been seeing any deer. This thing's been watching you.
Yeah, I mean, and there was like a lot of beds when you walk in there. There's like a lot of beds in these like small little brush. They're not like pine brush or like plant dead brush, and you can see like things were laying down there. So I'm like, oh, this is such a good spot. There's scat everywhere. I'm sitting out there for 10 hours at a time and nothing, not even a howling or anything in the sense of like a buck or anything. And years past, I don't know. This has been on my mind. Maybe you know more about this than I do, so maybe you can. The first year that I was hunting, this was the day, the day right after I couldn't shoot does anymore. But it was me, my wife, and my buddy. Again, this is the first year, so I'm like excited to just like explore the woods. So it's all three of us crunching through the woods like idiots, like making plenty of sound, sweating a storm. Like there's no way a deer's gonna get anywhere near us. But as we're walking through, and this is right as we were finding that this was the year that I found the that spot that I now hunt. To my right, we just all look to the right, and then we just see four does just come crashing through the woods, and they're like within like 40 feet of us, just all like just run. And then they run and just disappear to the left of us, and we're just like, I like had them on my sights. I'm like, damn it, it's just one day after doe season, so I can't shoot it, and that's as close I've ever come to like actually shooting them. But I didn't think of anything now until this year, where I was just like, isn't it kind of weird that we were crunching through the woods, making noise, talking. It was the day. It was. I still remember. We probably smelled like alcohol. It was the day after Thanksgiving. We were all like hungover, and these does just barged through the woods, running across right next to us. Like, I'm like, it just seems very odd that like, you know, we're being so loud, so stinky, and then they just no problem for them just run through.
Yeah, yeah, very well could have been.
Again, it's one of the many things that I've no realized that's happened throughout the years that just seems a little off.
Hmm. Now, was this in a pine forest?
There is pine and there's birch, there's acorns as well.
Okay, so a mix.
Yeah, it's a
Was this
mix.
next to the river or like a lake,
Uh,
some type
oh
of waterway?
man, this is New Hampshire. There's water everywhere. I mean, you could literally dig a hole and you'll
Hmm.
find water. There's a pond in the middle of the park. There's a pond. Um, Down by where the I heard the wood knocking. Down the elevation going down towards where my wife thought she heard the gunshots. That's actually all like fresh water. It's just like almost like a swamp style. And then back where I encountered this creature, if we're back at my deer stand and you look to your 11 o'clock, you walk all the way towards 9 a.m. all the way down. There's actually a river back there that goes from right to left. Like there's water everywhere. This is New Hampshire, man. You literally can't go 20 feet without finding a stream or a lake or some kind of water source.
Hmm. Now, was there a shooting range nearby? I'm not saying that's what you heard, but in my areas, I noticed the Sasquatch like to hang out by shooting ranges. I don't know if it like keeps people from noticing their wood knocks or, there's restricted areas where people just can't go in. I don't know.
Uh, yeah, nope. There's private property, and I've heard it plenty of times throughout the years. Well, in the last 2 years, there is somebody that shoots back there, and like usually it's you can tell how far away. It's pretty decently far. They just constantly shoot. You can hear it's semi-automatic rifles, and so yeah, there's people actually shooting back there. But this was close. This was like the first shot. I was like, "Oh, somebody's shooting," and then by the second bang, I'm like, "No, this is close," and it sounds like somebody's chopping down a tree.
When you heard the knocks, was that you and your wife in there?
Yes, it was. I was up on that little hill where I always hunt, and she was down at the actual at a rock that's on the what's it called, the old logging trail. So and then I've been back there too. So we're both staring in the same direction straight where my game trail is. She's hearing the gunshots in quotes to her left. I'm hearing that banging to my right, and then she says she heard a buck grunting straight ahead where my camera was. My camera went off like 6 or 7 times in that 2 weeks that I was there or more, but I never caught anything at all. So I don't know. I've been back there. I've walked. So if you walk like 100 to 200 yards, it literally just drops off drastically. Like it's just because it's very mountainous in here, so it's like the elevations. Like I said, you can't see anything because you see like 30 yards and then just like another hill. Then you walk up the hill and it's another hill. So it's like gradually gets higher and higher and higher, and then back there it just drops off. So I've never like gone past that. I've always stayed in this little area, and this was close. This was like close to the point where I was just like, well, that's weird that somebody's chopping off a tree. But last year they were logging, like there was a company logging in there, not in that same area, way back in a different spot, but like where I parked my car, you can hear the machines going off. Another detail that I noticed too, I don't know if it has anything to do with it. If you see the picture that I sent you, Lost Trail, that got closed off this year for the first time. I don't know if there was just like a bunch of trees knocked down on the way. There was a sign saying, "Hey, this is closed off." I don't know if it has anything to do with it. I still used it this year because it's still within the park, but it does go into private property. So I will disclaim that. I don't know. Maybe the people in private property, like, hey, we're sick of seeing people out here close off the trail. I just found that
Yeah.
weird. Just little things that just kind of keep adding up and just I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, but real quick, going back to the knocks, you did you hear like a series of two knocks? Maybe that could have meant two people walking in.
Yeah, it was two knocks. It was one.
Mm.
two, and then sounded like a tree was crunching. It literally just like, bah. I'm like, gunshot, pop. And I'm like, oh, someone's chopping a tree. And then you hear that. So then I'm expecting the fall, but there was never a fall.
Yeah, that is interesting. I guarantee if you go to that spot where you heard that tree break, you might find like an axe or some type of structure back there.
Yeah, I'm not going back there by myself. I'll tell you that. I'm not like I said. I'm not brave. I'm not courageous. I don't even care if I have a gun. Alone in those woods. I'm not going back there. Like I'm okay with that. Like if I go hunting next year, I'll probably like switch up spots. I don't know. I have been talking to somebody, and I've been trying to see if they like want to go out and like how they researching, and I'm like, hey, I'll go with you guys and I'll show you where all this happened, like the wood knocks. I am so curious. I do want to see these things. I just don't have somebody to go with, and I don't want to go by myself because I just don't want. I just had a baby. I don't want to disappear, and then my baby wonder whatever happened. Like, and that's why I see your videos, and like I said, I know you say you're not tough, but you are a tough man to me, man, for going out there and just messing through these woods. Because like I said, these things are it almost seems supernatural. The fact that like they know we're there, we don't know they're there. And now that you said that, that's very interesting. You said there was two bangs in the tree, like, hey, there's two humans here. And then my wife heard one gunshot, she said. Or I don't know. Now I have to ask her. I wonder if it's one or two. But I know afterwards she did hear the buck grunting from where I just had put my camera. So it's like, I don't. I for a while I thought, I'm like, oh, maybe they're hunting, but then now that you're putting that into perspective, they were, hey, there's two people in here. Be careful. Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Alex. Well, I think that pretty well covers your story. And did you have anything else to add before we finish up?
No, this has been great, man. It's been very therapeutic for me to be able to actually like talk to somebody and not just like type it on a phone to somebody that get it off my chest. Because my wife believes me. She was on the phone when it happened, but yeah, I don't really have anybody to talk to about it. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to actually like listen to me and believe my story. Seriously.
Yeah, it's no problem. And hopefully I gave you a different insight than what you had before the podcast.
Oh, 100%. I got a lot of things now that I'm just gonna keep thinking about. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll be thinking about it all day long. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess yeah, that's pretty well it, and I appreciate you getting in contact and doing this interview for all of us.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I hope to keep seeing your videos. They're very informative, and I learn a lot from you. So thank you very much for doing what you do, man. Seriously.
Yeah, it's no problem, and thank you for reporting your encounter to me.
Yes, sir. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Take care, man.
Bye.
Bye. All right, that was a really cool encounter, and Alex really painted a really good picture up in my mind of what took place that day at Bear Brook State Park. What really caught my attention about this encounter was his description about the eyes and how they were the size of bulbs. It's crazy how much these creatures' eyes will illuminate in the dark, sometimes even without the intervention of a flashlight. Basically, the Sasquatch will inch their way up close to you and observe you for hours and hours without you having any idea that they're even in the area. It's difficult to determine what their intentions really are when they're observing us from a distance. I think it's incredible how silent they are, but overall, how fast these creatures are. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter, please contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And like I said earlier, if you've been unsubscribed, go down to the bottom and check and resubscribe to the channel, and I would really appreciate it. Also, I want to give everyone a heads up that the new artwork is about finished, so I will have new art on the merchandise soon, and you can purchase a really cool t-shirt or coffee mug. Alright, I appreciate everyone for watching. Resubscribe to the channel if you can, and I will catch you guys on the next one.